Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. As the 2018 Baselworld novelties continue to reach us, today we're going to examine one of the flagship releases for Bell & Ross for the 2018 model year. Now the watch here is from the instrument collection. It's the BR-03-92 Diver Blue. This is an important watch because in a lot of ways it continues a few threads of recent Bell & Ross history and heritage. Now of course the first Bell & Ross diver debuted back in 1997. The first of the BR-03s in 42mm instrument style case came out in 2007, and last year, 2017, we saw the first rectangular Bell & Ross diver. This continues that tradition with a hip blue update, and blue is not just the look of the dial and the bezel and the strap. It is a theme that runs throughout the watch, one of the colors of our time, and as you can see, executed on a few different levels here. Let's take a look at the watch on the wrist, because color and character are best expressed the way you actually wear your watch. And as you can see, the fit is quite compact. My wrist is 16 centimeters and 42 millimeters is the size of the case, but it wears almost like a cushion. It's 42 millimeters square and relatively slim. Though a dive watch, it's only 12.3 millimeters thick, so you'll find if you do want to wear this with some kind of a jacket cuff, you're going to have no difficulty clearing the bezel. That is not universal in the dive watch class. Now, lug-to-lug, the watch is 51.5 millimeters, but again, it really just wears like a 42 millimeter square platform on your wrist. It is very planted, and a great deal of the credit goes to a full-width strap. One of the best design features of a Bell & Ross instrument watch is the strap that matches the width and the stance of the case. When you have a narrow strap on a broad watch, a lot of times the watch can move back and forth. That's not the case here, because not only is the width of the strap at extremity 33.5 millimeters, but you'll also note that it is quite securely mounted with a hex screw and a solid bar. So no spring bars here. Bell & Ross goes the extra mile with the fixture on each side for its strap on its dive model. Now the strap is a wonderful piece because it's also supple. As broad as it is, it's relatively thin. Now it does have character lines to add longitudinal definition as well as transverse striations on the top, but when you turn it over, you'll note that there's a large evacuated pocket that serves two purposes. One is to thin out the strap, so it's very flexible and comfortable on the wrist. It is a natural vulcanized rubber for long-wearing durability. And then the other purpose of that full-length hollow, which you'll note is on both sides, is to allow moisture, sweat, heat, and grit to escape the wrist on a hot day. It's easiest to adjust the size of your strap when your wrist may expand or contract during hot weather or periods of activity when you have a simple pin buckle. And this is a traditional pin buckle in steel, but you'll note the faceting, a combination of satin finish and polished bevels that are absolutely gorgeous. And this is a no-nonsense implement, but at the same time, like every other element of a Bell & Ross, it has been thoughtfully styled. It's not a default design. Moving back to the case, you can see that although it is a traditional stainless steel construction, as far as the instrument watches are concerned, this one takes traditional and upgrades with a measure of heavy-duty dive watch tech, starting with the screw-down crown. First of all, Bell & Ross leaving no doubt, showing you in which direction you turn to lock the crown, adding a shouldered natural vulcanized rubber sleeve to make it easier to manipulate the crown and more easily thread it out and thread it in when your hands may be wet, sweaty, or gloved. That's the logic of the color-coordinated vulcanized rubber shoulder. And then the guards themselves offering a measure of shear protection, but also highly stylized. As you can see, even the mounting screws themselves have been high polished on their caps. So it's both functional and beautiful, and the same goes for the rest of the case. I mentioned that this is traditional Bell & Ross instrument style construction, meaning there is a sort of cap, a case back, and a mid-case, the three elements defining the horizontal sweep of the case. But you'll note, thoughtfully added, there is a satin-finished striation that runs vertically along the case band to differentiate between the polished bevel of the cap on each side, both the back and the front. The lugs themselves are short-cropped, nicely finished. They have sharp and hard geometries that add a masculine strength to the composition, and the signature aligned bolts at the four corners are present and correct. Now we're going to give ourselves a little bit more more aperture and a little bit more light here and get a better view of Bell & Ross's bezel and dial. Of course, dive watches are highly functional and legibility comes first. You can see that the contrast on both the aluminum insert of the blue bezel and the dial itself very high in the light. There will be a lume shot at the end. Now the bezel's a highlight because it features two elements. There's the matte blue and the polished flank, but the knurling itself is easy to grip. Believe me, I had reservations about being able to turn the bezel on camera wearing gloves. No such concerns. Even with these slick boutique gloves, it's easy to turn this bezel. So when you're going to use this for anything from timing intervals remaining in a meeting to actually backing up your dive timer, you'll find that the grip is not a problem. Now, of course, this being a dive bezel, you're able to line up the luminescent pearl with the minute hand. And I find this is actually the best chronograph ever made. A good dive bezel with its ability to quickly and easily register a 60-minute elapsed period is more legible at a glance as well as more capable than a conventional chronograph, because most chronograph minute registers only register 30 minutes elapsed and then they roll to over. Here you get 60. The dial base itself is a matte blue with a sloped Rayhart or chapter ring outboard for more easily discerning the minutes and the seconds. All applied indices inboard. You can see there's a flash of color, the contrast of the hour hand as well as the shock at 6 of the rated depth of the watch. There's a nice discreet date window with a monotone blue date disc and a white on blue print for high contrast. It's quite unobtrusive. Now, if you're a purist and you're not into dates on a watch, this one's there when you want it and virtually disappears when you don't. Now, underneath the mostly satin finished but handsomely peripherally polished caseback is a Bell & Ross caliber BR-0392 automatic winding, 38-hour power reserve. It beats away at 4 Hz or 28,800 vibrations per hour. Now with the crown, you can hack or stop the seconds to synchronize the watch precisely to a dive timer. There's also a quick set system so you can rapidly cycle the date. The movement is an SW300 base that is tank tough and has smooth bi-directional winding, so the rotor is difficult to feel and it's difficult to hear. It's a very refined system. This is a dive watch that has remarkably versatile dimensions. Less than 12.5 millimeters thick, it's slim and it'll work with just about any cuff. Beautifully designed as well as ergonomically and utilitarian in its construction. You'll note that there's even a little bit of a swell of the case at the four corners where a lip has a small satin finished uptick to meet the bezel. Small details like this simply dominate the design of the watch, so while the macros, the size, the shape, the comfort, and the visibility are all standouts, this is a watch that rewards repeat viewing, as beautiful in detail as it is from a distance. Now you can learn more about the entire Bell & Ross collection on our website, govbergwatches.com. And we're back with the Bell & Ross BR-03-92 Diver Blue. As you can see, this is an easy one to view in any light, more green than blue by night. The luminescent pearl of the bezel is an absolute gem. This is an easy one to discern when the lights go out. And in true instrument fashion, the watch is a combination of form and function. You'll note there is a differential luminova application. The grade is distinct between the hour hand, which is somewhat subdued by night, and the minute hand, which is a dominant, brighter luminova formulation, so you can more easily read it against the bezel. You can see this one by the light of day and learn more about the entire Bell & Ross range on our website.